All right, take three. First rule of this channel, we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So welcome to Chasing the Dragon for week 17. Hopefully you're in your chip and that's why you're paying attention to this. So anyway, with Christmas and everything, I don't know how consistent with anything I will be. I'll probably get to the griff for sure. With the after waivers, it may not come out until Wednesday at this rate. But anyway, I wanted to get this out after taking a quick look at everything to see who the waiver wire guys are. So the big guy right now that I would be, putting all my remaining fab or claim towards would be CEH Clyde Edwards-Helaire. With the news that Isaiah Pacheco went out with a concussion, and then Jerick McKinnon was put on IR. This would potentially put CEH into the bell cow role. So, like, the two caveats to this would be like CEH is athletically limited, but at the same time, the Kansas City offense has been inconsistent. But the high value touches that he wasn't getting with McKinnon in the lineup, he may be in line to get. I would be a little surprised if Deneric Prince doesn't eat into this a little bit, the rookie. But I don't know how many of the high value touches they're going to give him. If they're going to trust him in pass blocking, if they're going to put him in design passing plays, if they're going to get him the red zone usage. The other guy would be a little Michael P. Ryan that they elevated to the active roster. Again, I don't know how much they're going to give him the higher value touches. So that would potentially give Clyde that avenue towards, the receiving work and the goal line usage. And that's all we really care about. Again, he's going to be limited by the fact that like Rashee Rice is probably the goal line guy. And then, they still have Kelsey. But overall, like this would be a definite move towards like mid to high end RB2 rolling into the finals. Again, with our lineups right now, it's more about blocks, if anything else, than potentially filling in a hole for 1 week. But even with Clyde this week going up against Cincinnati, this would be a guy that I would really feeling really good about rolling out if I had to be in that desperation type of play. So the other guys, and I gotta scroll back up to the top of my notes to talk about these guys. The other guys that I have, if right now coming out with this, it says that Purdy was knocked out. Brock Purdy was knocked out with a stinger. I don't know what that means. So like with potentially waivers coming out before we're going to have any news on what's going on with Brock Purdy, it would push Sam Darnold up to the top of streamability. So again, maybe I'm not running this guy. Maybe my opponent is. I will be streaming in my finals. And Sam Darnold would be at the top of my list. They are going to be playing at the Redskins. So that would be a guy that like he may be the number one quarterback of all street. Well, he will be the number one streamer. He will be up there if he is the starting quarterback for the 49ers. So that will be interesting to see what goes on. So again, if I'm just going to roll a guy out there and try and block something to be paying attention to rolling into reactive waivers. Let's see the other guys. The Bears running back situation right now. This is again going to be probably more for blocks unless you're in a bad situation and you're rolling out a guy as a RB2 or a flex. So Khalil Herbert went out, did 51% snaps, 20 for 112 and a touchdown against Arizona. And then a 2 for 1 for 9 in the passing game. Roshan did 46% snaps, 9 for 37, 3 for 3 for 16. The big news out of all this is Deonta Foreman was a scratch. And I think I've read someplace that it was personal matter, but it doesn't matter at this point. Like we're getting to the point where we can at least know that two guys are going to split the work in what will probably be, a neutral game script against Atlanta. Atlanta's probably not going to jump out and beat them down. So again, like if I have a dart throw, maybe I get that 20 carries again with Khalil Herbert. Maybe I can, maybe it's a hot hand in Roshan Johnson. Either way, like I probably outside of desperation wouldn't be rolling one of these guys out. But my opponent might see the opportunity to roll one of these guys out against me. And depending on how they're rostered in my league, I want to make sure that they're off the board. Oh, and then the other thing to be talking about with this is DJ Moore went down with an ankle. He came back in the game, but until we have news on this, it would upgrade Darnell Mooney to even potentially like low-end wide receiver 2 status. The other guy that went down with this is Cole Kmet. I think went down with a knee. I'm less interested in Robert Tonyan, but again, these targets have to go someplace in the offense. So they usually go to running backs. That would potentially upgrade Roshan. It would move up Darnell Mooney, obviously, in the offense. But again, like looking at what my opponent needs versus what I need, the dart throw that's going to be throwing out there. The other guys to talk about with wide receiver dart throws, possibly Josh Palmer for the Chargers would be on the table. Easton Stick hasn't looked particularly bad, but the other guy, again, from a dart throw situation, when we're trying to track some of this predictive, trying to predict what's going to happen a week in advance. Quentin Johnson, 83% snaps, 5 for 2 for 29, but he did have 106 air yards. So again, we can kind of track that the next week might be the week, and Denver's defense has been all over the place. So again, that wide receiver 3 type flex guy, if my opponent's going to be throwing a guy out there or I'm going to be throwing a guy out there, Quentin Johnson would be on the table this week. Let's see, DJ Shark. I would not have the cojones to go chase this, but DJ Shark, he did have 136 air yards this week, 2 touchdowns, 73% snaps, 8 for 6 for 98, 2 touchdowns. They go up against Jacksonville. Jacksonville is kind of a pass funnel. I think they're the second or third worst passing defense on the year. So again, if you have the intestinal fortitude to be chasing this dragon going into your finals week, it's really going to depend on your lineup. And again, or my opponent's lineup also. And the other thing is, we're going to talk about this probably next week, is being able to predict some of these guys, building these lineups. A lot of us out there may not need to be rolling these guys out. We may have built these juggernaut teams, but our opponents, on the other hand, may be limping in and throwing darts, and blocking some of these guys might become a priority. If you're in a league where Tucker Kraft, the tight end for the Packers, is available, I don't know what's going on in your league at this point, but I did look at Yahoo. I saw that he was only rostered 19% of the leagues. The reason why he would be a priority if he's still available in your league, even if you're not going to roll him out, 92% snap, 6 for 4 for 60, is right now what we're tracking out with the wide receivers. Jaden Reed was out. Dontavian Wicks got knocked out in the game. No news on Christian Watson. Potentially you have a tight end that could be rolling out as the number 1 in his offense this week. So that would be a priority to me. KJ Osborne would be another guy. There are going to more than likely be vacated targets in Minnesota in an offense that does like to throw the football. TJ Hawkinson's going to be out. Jordan Addison's likely going to be out. It's going to push KJ Osborne up into that wide receiver 3 type range. It's going to be very volatile to kind of predict where he's going to play that, or what his role in the offense, what his targets are going to be, but he is going to be in that dart throw range. Again, against Detroit, 85% snap, 7 for 5 for 95 and a touchdown. And again, a lot of these things are just going to be blocks. Other guys that potentially could be rolled out this week, if you're into streaming or somebody else on your team, or if your opponent's going to be streaming this week, CJ Beathard. It looks like Trevor Lawrence is going to be out with his shoulder. They do play Carolina, so that's kind of a okay matchup. He did do well when he came in the game late against Tampa Bay. So if I'm blocking, I'm looking to block that. But the other guy that's really interesting, the reason why I bring up the Jaguars, is this is a Bryce Young week, believe that or not. So Bryce Young last week about Green Bay, 23 of 36, 312, 2 touchdowns. And then Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is one of the worst passing defenses that are out there. So that would be something I'd be interested in. So finally, to knock all this off so we can move on to the next thing, trying to track our streaming defenses this week. Obviously Cleveland against New York. The only caveat that I would have to this is never trust Thursday Night Football. New York against Cleveland, probably not be something I would be interested in. The Cowboys in Detroit, I think, would be very unpredictable in their matchups. New England against Buffalo, if you're in a really desperate situation, always betting against turnover machines, and Josh Allen's a turnover machine. Buffalo against New England, if they're available, I doubt it. Chicago would be an okay streamer against Atlanta. The Raiders have some streamability against Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew can be a turnover machine. And the Colts against the Raiders are a streamer. Let's see. The Rams at the Giants are a streamer. Philadelphia against Arizona, if they're available. Tampa Bay and New Orleans, I don't think are very predictive one way or another. San Francisco, if you can get them against Washington. Jacksonville and Carolina, I think right now are going to be a very unpredictable game. Miami and Baltimore, wouldn't be touching. Tennessee and Houston, this is going to be all over the place based off the quarterback situations. Right now, I would guess maybe Ryan Tannehill is going to be rolling against CJ Stroud. If Stroud's out there, I think that changes the dynamic of the game a little bit, and maybe makes Houston an okay roll against Tennessee, but not the other way around. The Steelers, maybe against Geno Smith, he could be a turnover machine, and vice versa. Maybe they're a role against the Steelers because of the backup quarterback situation. Denver and the Chargers, no idea one way or another. Either of these teams are going to be very predictive at this point. The Bengals maybe against Kansas City. They've been kind of struggling. Kansas City maybe against the Bengals. The Green Bay probably Green Bay would be a pretty good stringer against Minnesota, even though I think there's going to be a lot of points. Green Bay is going to be coming after Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins had those 4 interceptions, and Minnesota would be an okay streamer against Green Bay because of how they run their defense. So anyway, to finish talking about this before we get out of here today, chasing the Dragon, when we try and look at these predictability of guys like Derek Carr with the 3 touchdown passes against Tampa Bay, or excuse me, against the Rams, like that's not something that we can necessarily predict against the Rams, but he is going up against Tampa Bay. So that would be another guy that would be interested in streaming. That's a good defense to be taking advantage of overall. Russell Wilson, he's also always going to have the ability for the nimbly bimbly. So if he's available and you need one against the Chargers, I already talked about Bryce Young, Nick Mullins. The Vikings do pass the football at like the highest rate in the league. So that would be somebody I'd be interested in. It doesn't really matter about the, how the sausage is made. Joe Flacco, if he's available, not a very good matchup against the Jets, but this is the thing I've been talking about. Like sometimes it's not going to be overwhelmingly predictive with the passing volume, and he's just been getting it done. So, maybe if you're really into that type of thing. Overall, from running backs, Chris Rodriguez, not particularly interested, only 39% snaps. But you can see Khalil Herbert's there. But overall, like trying to guess these things, like Breece Hall, this was a matchup-based run against Washington. So again, like if we have the good matchup, sometimes that's all that we're going to have from a tea leaves perspective to be able to guess on certain guys. Rolling him out there. Amari Cooper, this was something that was, probably not predictive other than the fact that like he's getting wide receiver 2 usage and it just spiked in the right week. George Pickens is another guy like boom bust guy and it spikes in the right week. So anyway, that moving on, Chig was not predictive. Juwan Johnson, not particularly predictive. Cole Kmet. So yeah, so that's what we're looking at. So the Raiders going up against the Chiefs, being, inconsistent their role. The Patriots going up against the inconsistency of the Broncos, their role. The Buccaneers, and this was another one going up against Jaguars. Jaguars have been inconsistent, even though the Bucs have been bad. The Steelers, I said, like, I wouldn't be rolling them out because of how unpredictable the matchup would be against the Bengals, and they get it done sometimes. So again, that's what we're looking at. So anyway, that's the thoughts going on with all of this stuff, and hopefully this will help you guys. Like I said, I'll hopefully get the after waivers done on Wednesday at the latest, and then the grift will be on time on Friday afternoon.